Okay, we're rolling. Okay, this might be the biggest interview I have of the whole Tehran experience. I'm here with one of the original revolutionaries of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. He's a documentary filmmaker. He speaks great American English. He's my new friend, Mr. Nader Talebzadeh. Thank you for consenting to do an interview with me.
Yes, my pleasure.
This man also loves Jesus, one of the greatest prophets of all time. He's made a film called The Messiah, and so it's been great talking to you about the truth about Jesus, the truth about Trump.
Right.
Not to compare the two. The truth about 9/11. You're interested in all of it. You're interested in a deep seeking for a deep truth.
Right.
What are you working on now?
Well, as things are going on, I have a weekly show, and part of my weekly show, talk show, is talking to American dissidents, American intellectuals who have views that will give an Iranian perspective of what's going on in America.
That's great.
And so
give people hope that there's some dissent.
Yes. First of all, we are aware of that through the conferences, but when you have an interview and then you carefully translate these interviews, which are usually about 40 minutes, and you insert in the documentary footage, then it becomes nice. It becomes nice. People, the audience likes these shows. Part of it is the Americans, but it's about 30% of what I do every year. Is about what's going on in America. Because a lot of what happens to Iran has to do with America, the decisions they make, and the reactions they make to Iran. So this works both ways. And I've been at it since 1979.
Wow.
But for the past 7 years, I've had this talk show. And so the talk show also varies in subjects. Sometimes it's critical of the government policies, the banking system in Iran. It's critical inside too.
And they allow you to do criticism of the banking system in Iran?
Yeah, I had a show called Raz, or The Secret, which lasted 5 years, until I ended it myself and I started another thing, which the program you were on is called AS, or The Time.
Okay.
In that 5-year slot, I got to talk about how the rich in Iran have escaped giving taxes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the most tax evaded one. And it turns out Iran is one of the most tax evaded countries in the world.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Even more than the U.S.?
Yeah, much more.
Wow. Because I know Press TV has done stuff on Google and how they have, Irish tax status, and there's a lot of tax evasion through corporations. I know Press TV was looking at that.
Yeah, but so yes, I was always allowed to do my show. Began around 11:20 at night and went on for about 90 minutes live. I also talked about how the economy, the banking system is very un-Islamic. Compared to some of the neighboring countries, and the interest rate is very high, very, very high. So I was allowed to do that too. I mean, it raised a few eyebrows because nobody had raised these, but it started the dialogue in the country. So I've had. I think this is sort of not my passion, but what I like doing because nobody else is doing it. And like the interview I did with you. As a combination of, what you do, what you write about 9/11, and the fact that you're also an artist. You're going to have in the show part of the music you do as a lead singer. Because the Iranians, like American music, and they like a lot of the Iranians do like American youth, and they like to have a good.
Yeah, we were driving around Tehran today with Shakiba,
yes.
and she had some great music on. So a lot of it I knew, and some of it I didn't.
Yeah. So that's basically what I'm occupied with now. In the past, I did a series on Jesus, a long series, probably the longest series ever on Jesus, anywhere in the world.
Tell me about your theories that Pope Benedict resigned the papacy because he might have had an access to this Gnostic gospel of St. Barnabas that the Turks are keeping under lock and key.
Right.
And this is a theory that I've never heard in the historicity of Jesus, but that he might have has mind blown.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, this part that I'm telling you is all documented in news. Reuters reported that the Pope had asked the Turkish government that they would give him a copy of the Gospel of Barnabas, which is kept in Ankara. This copy was discovered in the year 2000. It was taken away from smugglers who were trying to take it from the tomb of Barnabas in Cyprus.
Right. And Barnabas was the 13th apostle, right? When they had replaced Judas, and then they elected Barnabas. Yeah, right.
And there's a gospel called the Gospel of Barnabas, in which in the Gospel of Barnabas he talks about the coming of a prophet after Jesus. That's a message. Yes,
has a personal relevance?
Yes. And so it's considered an apocryphal gospel among other things. Therefore, so the Pope, it had been carbon tested, and it was said, I think, 17 or 1800 years old was the age of the gospel. But Turkey would not release it, neither to the Muslim or the Christian scholars. The Turkish generals are all secular.
Yeah.
So I found that very interesting, and then the Pope had asked formally, and they had refused, or they didn't give an answer. But suddenly, after a certain while, the Pope resigned. Now, when you pay attention to the point, is that the chances are very well that he got a photocopy of the Gospel, because he is the Pope. Officially, the Vatican officially asking the Turkish government. This is in Reuters. Officially, there's a letter from the Vatican to the government of Turkey. Please let us check out this Bible. And it's my personal feeling that they would give it to him. And he studied it. He had studied it. Any man who studies the Gospel of Barnabas, if you read the Gospel of Barnabas in English, and it was translated from English to Farsi about 100 years ago, and from English to Arabic about 100 years ago. Before that, even the Muslims had no access to it. It has the most sublime, the most beautiful words from the mouth of Jesus about everything, about the universe, why God created the universe. It's the most beautiful. It was very touching. I mean, you can get it. You just Google Gospel of Barnabas and read it. Just read it.
So it's available now?
Yes,
online?
yes, it's always on.
Okay, great.
Go to the Gospel of Barnabas and just read it. And you, as a faithful Christian, just check it out, what he's saying. It's very moving. And of course, my film is basically based on the Gospel of Barnabas. Basically based on the dialogues and the sequences. Basically. Some places I use some imagination. I gave myself some license. But basically, I adhered to the story.
Right.
I believe the Pope reads something because it's a very moving thing to read the oldest existing gospel in the world, and then finding out that it talks about a prophet Jesus is talking about a prophet that's coming after him, and he names him.
He names Muhammad?
He names him.
Oh, wow. So he was kind of a prophet himself to see
into
the future.
Yes. He says, first of all, the whole dilemma there is everybody's calling him, are you the last prophet? He says, no. He comes after me. That's the whole drama there. And then who are you? I'm a prophet. I'm a messenger of God. And I've come to correct what has become, has gone in disarray, and the teachings of Moses, to correct Torah, and give glad tidings of a prophet coming after me. And then he names a prophet.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. That's why I was inspired to make the film and do it. And,
Great. Since you're a scripture scholar in your own right, and one of the big eye-opening things about the conference is really looking hard at the core myths of Judaism and the core, do they have a right to the Holy Land? Do the Jews, the modern Jews, have a right to the Holy Land? I definitely want to get your perspective on this. I have a feeling you'll have a lot to say. But one of the things, the American delegation had plenty of people that were critical of Israel, but also critical of some of the core myths of Judaism. They said that basically Exodus is just a myth, and there's no archaeological evidence for Exodus really being historical. What do you think?
First of all, I think the Exodus was historical.
You do?
Yes, because the American archaeologists who discovered a lot of relics that showed that Moses crossed the Red Sea, etc., etc.
Okay.
That's for that.
But the pharaoh is not named. Do we know which pharaoh it was?
I think the American archaeologist, I forget his name, who found the chariot wheels in the Red Sea.
Really?
See,
That's a high degree of evidence.
Here is a Muslim telling a Christian some things that he has never heard about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about an American archaeologist who passed it, who was an amateur archaeologist, but there's a museum, and his sons are carrying it on. He looked at the Bible and he saw where Moses came with his people and which crossing he passed across the sea.
Okay.
He came exactly at that valley. He came to that point. And then he couldn't, because he didn't have the equipment, he didn't do that trip, but he went back to the States and came back with enough money and funding to get a boat and a diver. And then they went that path and they went down and they found all these coral reefs around wheels. And there were remnants of what's it called? The shoe horse, the horseshoes, yes,
right,
and other relics and chariots, and some gold, and a chariot that was made of gold.
Wow.
Yes, and I think the Saudi government prohibited it being lifted out of there. Mm-hmm. So, but he filmed the whole thing. There are documentary films. Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So this guy found evidence of the pharaoh, and he knows we know which pharaoh it was that was chasing Moses. That's all. I don't have to recall the name, but.
Mm-hmm. So let's. What are the political implications for modern day Middle Eastern politics? Is there do the Jews have a right to be in the Holy Land?
Of course, they have a right to be in the Holy Land. They've lived there for thousands of years. They lived there before Islam. You know, the Jews have lived there before the time of Jesus. Of course, it's.
We should talk to some of these Americans.
Yes,
these Americans are saying, "Oh, they didn't. That there's no evidence for the reign of King David or the reign of King Solomon."
No, that's not. You shouldn't be silly. These are historical. I was just talking to Rabbi David Weiss.
Yeah.
And
he's from New York, actually, too.
Yes, from New York. I've been interviewing many times, and then with Rabbi Aaron Cohen from London,
right,
about different issues. And and we talked about this issue. Of course, it should be said that in the future, all Jewish people who want to go back to Israel and to old land of Palestine live there, it's their right, and no one in their right mind in the Muslim world will say no. They lived side by side peacefully for so many centuries, and this by itself is enough evidence that there's they lived in friendship. Therefore, this is, yes, of course. I mean, who can deny the Jewish people going back to Judea, going back to Jerusalem,
right,
going back to Nazareth, going back to anywhere in Judea, and going back to Tyre or going to Sidon? It's their right. It's their right, and no one denies it. Iran doesn't say it. It's just that when you start kicking out the
Palestinians,
then that's where the problem begins.
Right,
yeah,
and also, Christian, one of the big takeaways from this conference has been that a lot of the scholars here at the conference have said that the Jewish expansion in the territories is a violation of Muslim and Christian sacred sites. Right, so there's been a lot of I think people are at the conference have been trying to tell the Christian populations worldwide that something wrong is happening here. Not only and it hits the heart of Muslims and Christians, right?
Repeat the question again.
The question is the Zionist expansion in the territories is a violation of Christian, Muslim and Christian.
Yes.
Because I don't think there's been enough emphasis, especially in the Western media, which might want to hear it.
Yes.
Yes. Sure, we got a lot of Islamophobia to overcome, but it seems to me that it would make more sense to, hit people where it hurts and touch people in their hearts where they really care.
Yes.
And so the idea of Christians have a right to the Holy Land, Muslims have a right to the Holy Land, and the Zionist expansion in the West Bank and the settlements are, and all of this, basically Zionist imperialism is hurting a lot of other religions besides Muslims.
Jimmy, let me tell you about something about your own history that we might not pay attention to.
Great.
Is that who were the people at the time of the birth of Jesus who made a journey months before Jesus was born? And they
were the wise men, the magi from the east.
Yes,
right.
Now, in the books today, they say the east, but when I was growing up in Tehran and I went to an international school, they said the wise men from Persia.
Oh, from Persia.
Yes, but it's been censored. So you, as a young man growing up, and after the Islamic Revolution, not Persia. Those are not Persian magi. Those are not Persian wise men. Although I went to a school where all my teachers were American, and it was always, you look at the old Bibles, printed 70 years ago, 60 years ago, it was always a Persian. These were 3 Persian scholars who knew from the star.
They were astronomers.
Right. They came from Iran to Jerusalem. They went to the king Herodes at that time.
Right.
And they told him the story that would come. There's a new king being born, and he said, of course, show me where he's born. I'd like to come and also be there. And of course, we know the rest of the story. But who were they? They were the Persians. And what did they bring with them? They brought precious gifts for
frankincense,
Saint Mary. Yes.
gold, and myrrh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who in the world at that time cherished the mother of Jesus and brought with them gold and the others that they brought? I mean, honored this great woman, this great saint. So after the Islamic Revolution, they eliminated the word Persian wise men. When I was growing up, there was in our school we had theater. I went to an international school where there was a Christian curriculum for a while. And all those Bibles have been reprinted nowadays. And the word from Persia has been changed to the east. That much animosity towards Iran.
There is a lot of animosity, right? And so,
but that's one of the things you could bring up. I mean, you'll be the first person to bring this up. I mean, why do you have to censor history?
Right.
I mean, you hate the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, for whatever reason, the hostage crisis, whatever. Why do you eliminate this part of history? You know how many thousands of paintings there are in the world depicting the scene where the 3 wise men come to Mary? And those wise men did not come from New Jersey.
Right.
They came from Iran.
Right. Right.
And so,
let's talk a little bit about the hostage crisis. It's emotional for a lot of Americans. I remember as a boy, there was so much hatred and anger. How dare they take hostages?
Yes.
I remember asking, I was like 7 or 8, and I asked my mom, why did they take the hostages?
Yes.
And my mom said, well, they're angry because they have some money that was frozen, that the Shah had some money and it was frozen. And so I was like, oh my God, they can freeze money? So that wasn't the full story, because the full story, as I learned from Stephen Kinzer in All the Shah's Men, he wrote this great book about, for Americans, taught us a lot about Mossadegh.
Yes.
In the 1953
right.
Allen Dulles, CIA, Kermit Roosevelt coup with their friends in the MI6, British intelligence. Right. Was the hostage crisis because the the Iranian revolutionaries, felt that there would be another CIA counter coup against the Islamic Revolution?
No, I don't think that was the reason. They were just angry that the Shah went to the U.S. and Jimmy Carter, the Shah could go to another country, could go to Germany, could go to England, could go to Canada. That he went to the country that had protected him, that had created the coup that brought the Shah to power in 1953.
Right.
Against the elected Prime Minister of the time.
Mossadegh.
Yes, exactly. So the Iranians expressed their anger by, and this was not synchronized with Imam Khomeini. They just jumped over the walls.
Oh, okay. So the Khomeini never ordered it?
No, because just about 2 months before that, the communist leftist Marxists did the same thing. They jumped over the wall. I was there. And when they jumped over the wall, by noon, the foreign ministry had cleared them off. Get out of the embassy,
Right.
Stop this student work.
It was like occupied.
Boys,
they said, let's occupy the embassy.
Boys, get out. Yeah.
Right.
They swept them out.
Swept them out
Yes,
by force.
Yes. But when the students went into the embassy at that time, it was not coordinated. It was not endorsed by Imam
It was a
Khomeini.
spontaneous,
Yes, they did
almost anarchistic, spontaneous.
Yes, anarchistic. And those 6 hostages that are depicted in the film Argo,
Yeah.
went through the back door. They could have, instead of all that espionage work and given all the hard, difficult time that they had to go, this was all baloney. All they had to do was walk over to the foreign ministry, and the foreign minister Ibrahim Yazdi would have put him on top of cotton and put him on the first Swiss air to fly him back to Geneva. I mean, they were saying that the government at that time were opposed to what the students did, and so you didn't need all this drama of going to the Canadian embassy on that, and that's one of the things that was on the sideline. But the event itself was more dramatic than the revolution. Actually, the hostage crisis. And Imam Khomeini said famously that this was like bigger than the first revolution. And I always thought, well, the first revolution was the most important to me. I saw it as we saw it happen. Why would he say it? The reason is nobody had withstood against America and to claim some right, whatever right that be. Not even an American corporal had ever been detained. And here there were members of the embassy all detained. And of course, the American media went ape. I mean, I interviewed Bert Quint at that time. David Miller was the head of CBS News in Tehran. I interviewed all the main people at ABC and NBC. And I said, "What is this?" He said, "Well, it's the nature of the beast, the sensationalism." I said, "But the Iranians are not going to tear these guys up. They're going to be in the embassy for a while, and then they'll release them. Nothing will happen." I said, "Are you sure they're not going to be?" Of course. This is the temperament of the revolution. It's not a killing. This will not happen.
Just can I add one point? The point is the students found the most, complicated and developed spying system at that time. They found it in the U.S. Embassy here, and the U.S. the personnel of the U.S. Embassy were not only spying Iran, but through Iran they were spying the other Persian Gulf countries too.
Yeah.
I have been there, and I have seen. At that time, it was the most complicated and advanced system of spying.
Exactly. That's exactly true. I mean, even when you go visit today, they'll show you those rooms, etc., where they were doing those things.
So I know it's a sensitive spot. We tried to get in there today, but we were not allowed, mostly because I think they profiled us. They didn't want Americans there. Hamed, who was just here, he said, thank you. Hamed said that if you were African, you might have had a better chance of getting in, but so it's still a sensitive spot there.
No, usually the Americans get it. I've been with them many times into the embassy, and they've done stuff. That's not.
But if we could have had access, what I hear is still there preserved is like the 1979 style of NSA intelligence, in which all phone calls are being tapped, right? And CIA was helping. It's not SAVAK, it's SAWAK.
SAVAK.
SAVAK, right? Iranian. S-A-V-A-K, Iranian intelligence under the Shah, which was notorious as like almost like a gulag, almost like a KGB evil. You know, one phone call, and if you're a dissident in Iran under the Shah, you're out and you're tortured and killed and dumped. So, so tell us more about what is inside the den of espionage today.
Well, it's like a museum today, and to take him on a tour, it's nothing exciting in terms of...
I'm excited by it.
Yes. Well, it's important ground. It's a ground for change. What happened is when the American media came, at that time I went from Iran to the U.S. just 3 weeks before the hostage crisis. And I had been witnessing the Iranian revolution up close. When I was there, the embassy takeover was taken. I was watching the American news every night, and it was scary. It was scary stuff they were showing. I mean, they were like overboard in dramatizing. You know, it's like Bert Quint was giving a report about how this great minister was talking about these Americans. These Americans have to be taken to court. And we don't know what's. And the American reporter would ask, what would happen if they go to court? So we don't know, but the court and the judge will decide what they've done, and they will cut to one of these kebab sellers in front of the embassy because of these crowds there, and there's all these vendors were selling things. One of the things they were selling, is his favorite Iranian food, is liver, and they would have liver and skewers on charcoal. And when the guy is putting the liver in, the cameraman, the CBS camera, would show blood dripping from, and he was end the sequence.
It's a great shot.
Yeah. I mean, the sequence would end with the judge saying, "We don't know what the fate of the Americans is going to be. No one can tell, but we'll see."
Right. The visual is more important than anything.
Yes. And Americans would watch that. Oh my God!
You know, in America they say, "If it bleeds, it leads." You know, blood is a great headline. If it bleeds, it leads.
I mean, story after story. At that time, before this hostage crisis, I was working with CBS before the revolution itself won. And at that time, one of the stories New York wanted was about the Jews in Iran and how they're all escaping and they're so scared of the mullahs and things. So this guy from Wisconsin started doing the report. He was the chief correspondent. And for a week or 2 weeks, he was working on the story. And what he found out is all the Jews were staying. No one was leaving. Imam Khomeini was in the country. The revolution had won at that time, had won. 4 months have gone by. The hostage crisis, what was going to happen like in 5 6 months. Everything was in order. Nothing had happened. And so he would follow this Jewish businessman who showed that he'd be playing tennis and the club and the life is as ordinary. And he would not leave Iran to go to New York or anywhere. So the story, and he did many different Jewish families in Iran. So the story turned out to be very positive. And they edited, I remember he was editing it in the hotel. They sent it over, and New York didn't broadcast it. And I saw the day that he got the news that it wasn't broadcast, but he really worked on the story.
Yeah.
He had narrated it.
They killed it. They killed the story.
Yeah, they had beautiful stand-up and talked to all these. He said, then he confided. He said, "Always happens with a Jewish story." I said, "Why? What happens?" So here they asked me. I did it, and it turned out that no one is leaving Iran. They're very happy here, and they're very safe here. And because they're safe, they will not show. And so I said, "I'm going to quit CBS. I'm going to go to Wisconsin." And he was from Madison.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start a private radio. I don't know what his name was, but it sort of affected me. It was like a lesson in media.
Yeah.
And the distorted media. There was like. Actually, the hostage crisis was a point of great change in many things. I mean, it changed the American president.
Let's talk about that.
It changed the American media.
Because the hostages weren't released until the day that Reagan was elected. So there was
444 days.
You believe there was a deal? There was an October surprise deal?
I don't know about if there was a deal or not, and I don't believe Iranians would make a deal. Under Imam Khomeini's eyes, they dared do anything. But you don't need to have a deal because they prolonged this so long. Carter lost all validity, all credit.
Right.
That,
They were angry at Carter
Yes.
anyway.
Yes,
So the,
yes.
a deal, you're saying a deal wasn't necessarily proven
No, because the hostage crisis happened during his time.
because he
Yes.
let the Shah in.
And the Delta Force,
Helicopters.
rescue mission had failed miserably, and America took it,
A publicity hit.
Yes, it was a hit. That, and then, so anyhow, Reagan came on. I mean, like the hostage crisis, that was one of the results.
Yeah.
It derailed the American presidency.
In 1986, when Robert McFarlane came to Tehran to do a secret deal for that later became the basis for the Iran-Contra deal, he met with a certain man by the name of Rouhani,
Yes.
who is now your president.
Yes.
So Rouhani, I know he's canceled your New Horizons conferences. I know you haven't always been super positive. We want to edit. We'll edit this, and we'll be.
Then you're free.
Okay, good.
You're in a free
Thank
country.
you.
You're in a free country.
We're in a free country. Good. That's good to know. It's a free country without Facebook. But anyway, it's interesting that your current president was a part of the Iran-Contra deal on the Iran side. Go ahead. Tell me about what you think about that.
Actually, I'm not very well versed on that. I haven't done too much research on that, really. I like to talk about something.
Speculate.
But another thing that happened that many Americans don't know about is the hostage crisis changed the face of news in America.
Yeah.
This is when the Americans realized, American news savvy people realized people were hungry for news.
Yeah.
And they
Oh,
wanted,
that's right. And CNN started right around the same time, right?
Ted Turner came up with the idea, if people watch news about Iran with such episode, let's have a news channel 24 hours a day.
Right.
Ted Koppel was doing his show, that was sort of, but it was Ted Turner. Of course, they made fun of him when it was called CNN. They called it Chicken Noodle Network because they thought it was definitely going to fail. It didn't fail.
They called it Chicken News Network?
Chicken Noodle Network.
Chicken Noodle Network, right.
CNN,
Right,
But the guy
right.
was right.
Yeah.
So what changed the media, that brought in the new media, was actually the Islamic Revolution and the hostage crisis.
Yeah.
That's very important, and that's today that is camouflaged. I mean, no one talks about it because no one keeps track of it. I mean, but you have to add Ted Turner. You have to ask Ted Turner because the man is very depressed now. I don't know how they took CNN from under him, but anyhow, it's not the CNN that he envisioned.
Right.
So the hostage crisis, I mean, put Reagan.
Can we walk and continue because he's a very old man and he's waiting you more than 30 minutes.
Okay.
So can we just walk and continue?
Okay, we'll wrap this up. Give me,
No.
2 minutes.
Just a minute.
Okay.
So CNN derailed the presidency.
Right.
Started the 24/7 media, news media,
Yeah.
the first time, the hostage crisis. Reagan came into power, and lo and behold, who was Reagan? Who was Reagan? He was not presidential quality.
Right.
And then, of
He was
course,
a media creation. He was
Yes.
an actor. He was
and
a,
then
fa-
you had a
well-known
string.
face.
You had a string of American presidents below the standard, or somehow weird. I mean, the Iranian Revolution and the hostage crisis derailed, I believe, the American president. So it began with the ousting of Carter, coming in with Reagan. Then after, of course, with Reagan came all the neocons.
Right.
Came the evangelists, the
Look what
Zionists,
you did.
the Zionist
You owe
evangelists.
us. You owe us a presidency.
And then after that, we had the weird groups like, who has done anything worse than Clinton did in the Oval Office? And then Bush, who couldn't say one sentence with good literature.
Yeah.
And then after that, Obama was planted. He came out of oblivion into presidency.
Yeah.
And then the loose gun Trump,
Yeah.
which the first thing he does is attack CNN.
Yeah.
So we're coming full circle.
Well, it couldn't possibly get worse. That's the good news. It's got to go up from here.
Yes.
Listen, I know that you have another interview, and this was a 5-minute interview, and it turned out to be a 33-minute interview, and I've also got to talk to this gentleman next. So, listen, Mr. Nader Talebzadeh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great talking to you. We'll stay in touch. Salam.
Salam.